What is going on from the government side?
It's a version of what we're trying to do now in the media, which is get the facts about what happened. And at the scene, if the gunman is still active, to identify him and render him harmless, mostly by, frankly, shooting him. And so law enforcement will be at the scene trying to figure out exactly what happened, and their command and control system will be doing the same. The U.S. Capitol has its own police department, which is part of the legislative branch, and they're responsible for protecting it. But it's a very sensitive area. It's important to remember that the U.S. Supreme Court is also on the same plaza on Capitol Hill, and just across the plaza you have the U.S. Marshals protecting the court. So there are multiple different agencies involved, and they will all be essentially trying to protect their building and their people.
Understandably enough. And Richard, you heard Peter Cook say it as well. I mean, we don't know, as you said, as far as facts go, they are pretty scarce, whether this is somehow related to frustration with the government shutdown, whether this is completely unrelated. But how does the government go about trying to get that information?
Well, first, it's customary in situations like this for us not to know exactly what's going on and why it happened. And the first thing that has to happen is the shooter has to be identified and apprehended or killed. And once that's done, it's usually pretty quick that the government can piece together what was motivating that person. They'll be identified by name, they'll be traced to their family, and they'll have a social media presence, which will be analyzed, and it'll be within a matter of hours that some picture will emerge. But step one is the apprehension of the individual, or much more rarely the individuals. So this is almost always a single shooter who does this, and if it were multiple shooters, it would be a far more dangerous situation.
Okay, Richard, hold that thought. We're going to keep Richard on the line with us, but in the meantime, I'm going to get back to my colleague Megan Hughes, who has more information. Megan.
Deirdre, just for some perspective here, we've got an email here from Capitol Police to all house staff on what they're being advised to do. They're being told to close, lock, and stay away from external doors and windows, to take their go kits and escape hoods, and move to the innermost part of the office away from external doors or windows. Now, if you're not in the office, they're being told to wait until the incident is cleared. No one's going to be permitted to enter or exit the building until they're directed to do so. And all staff, of course, should be monitoring the situation. So that's what they're being told on Capitol Hill. We know that the FBI is responding to this scene as well, and those are all the new details that we have at this point.
Okay,
Deirdre?
so Richard, to bring you back in, Megan, thank you very much. Megan Hughes, of course, joining us there. Richard, back with you. As you mentioned, of course, you did say that the Capitol Police, there is its own police force, so that is the one that presumably has ordered the lockdown. You heard even our colleagues basically saying they've been ordered to stay away from doors and windows just until there's more information.
So the email that Megan read to us is a standard operating procedure, and it doesn't necessarily follow that the gunman is still at large. For all we know, the situation's been resolved. But out of an abundance of caution, the Capitol Police are issuing this to the people that work inside the office buildings and the Capitol. And it's a sort of instruction that is routinely issued in an emergency situation. And in part, it's because the police are trying to evaluate the situation and want to move bystanders out of the area to sort of simplify the field so that people who are still moving around can be looked at more closely.
Okay, Richard, hold the thought again. Peter Cook, I want to bring you back in, our Chief Washington correspondent. What have you heard, Peter?
Well, I'm just getting a little bit more from some of my colleagues who are out and about on the Hill, or at least were working at the time. And one piece of information I've gotten relayed by some of my colleagues is that there were senators actually out here on Constitution Avenue walking from where their office buildings are either to the Capitol or back when these shots were fired. No indication that they physically saw the shooter, but that police actually grabbed the senators, and that these senators, about 4 of them, were actually huddled behind cars at one point on Constitution Avenue out of an abundance of safety precaution, the police looking out for their safety. Again, don't know what the details are more about the shooting itself, but that there were senators, at least in enough proximity to what happened here, that they were the police did take action to try and protect the safety of those senators. So we're going to try and find out more. We are, again, on the Senate side of the Capitol. There are several office buildings. For anyone who knows the Capitol Hill area, I'm in the Russell Senate office building. The next one up is the Dirksen building, and then the Hart Senate office building. This is where, of course, senators have their offices. This is where the Senate staff works. Of course, we have a reduced staff right now because of the furlough situation. There are a lot fewer people on Capitol Hill right now because of the shutdown than we would otherwise have. We do have a full police presence, I should point out. U.S. Capitol Police are essential personnel. They're not getting paid right now, but there's a full complement of U.S. Capitol Police, although there's a smaller number of people here staffed than there would otherwise be. And it does feel a little bit different in the last little bit, just in terms of physical presence, the sheer number of people on the Hill. But the U.S. Capitol Police have been here the whole time, and clearly they responded to what's happened right outside here.